This rally is a critical juncture where our collective voices must be heard. We cannot overlook the gravity of this occasion. We stand not only for the families that are here today, but with all the families who have suffered the devastation and loss of a loved one to fentanyl poisoning, a national public health crisis. Together we can send a resounding message to the public that the era of impunity for those who peddle illicit substances leading to death must come to an end. We refuse to tolerate the senseless loss of lives at the hands of those who profit from the misery of addiction. My son Calvin was poisoned by fentanyl on April 30th, 2023. He was not found until May 2nd, and as a result, I would never see my son again. Never got to say goodbye, never got to hold his hand and tell him it would be okay. It is as if my son vanished. May 2nd, 2023, when the police came to my door at 9 p.m., was the worst night, being the mother of an addict. It was the night that I found out my son was gone forever. I don't know why addiction chose my son. I do know that he could be anyone's son. When I held my baby in my arms for the very first time and whispered, "I will love and protect you for as long as you live," I didn't know then that my baby would become an addict before becoming an adult, or that the addict taking his place would shed the meaning of those words to smithereens, and that I would have to learn how to love my son without hurting him, how to trade shame and blame for strength. Before my son was an addict, he was a child. He was my child. Before my son was an addict, he liked to joke around, give me big hugs, write me poems, pick me flowers. He liked to put a towel around his shoulders and pretend to be Superman. When addiction scooped up my son, it did so indiscriminately. My son dreamed of becoming a firefighter and a fisherman. Becoming an addict was not on his list. I know the child who dreamed those dreams, and he is a child to be proud of. Tender, thoughtful, and so smart. He should have been living those dreams, but someone who looked like my son was hooked to the strings of an evil puppeteer, and instead of fighting fires, he was fighting demons. A life full of promise, lost to lies. Addiction took my son's dreams, chewed them up, and spat out a horrible nightmare. I am not ashamed that my son was an addict. I am sad that he was an addict. To be the parent of an addict is to be the ambassador of truth and understanding. No more shame, no more silence. We have the power to change the way addiction is perceived. We have the power to change the way addiction is believed. We have the power to change the way in which our beloved are judged and treated. I will continue to fight that fight for Calvin, for all the addicts, and for all the other mamas. When I first talked to Englewood Police, they told me that the Special Investigation Unit was highly interested in my son's case, that they would seek charges in the form of manslaughter and distribution resulting in death. They know, and I know, exactly who it was that peddled that poison. He is an individual convicted of second-degree murder in Arkansas, sentenced to 20 years probation, subsequently charged multiple times with distribution of drugs and weapons violations resulting in a violation of his probation in Arkansas. But he has never been held accountable for those crimes because he fled to Denver to peddle his poison here on our streets. Here, where he was again arrested for distribution of drugs, he was arrested in possession of a firearm and large quantities of meth, cocaine, heroin, and fentanyl. And again, sentenced to probation. Twice arrested on his warrant from Arkansas and twice released because Arkansas refuses to pick him up. And here I stand, over a year later, and no charges have been filed. They told me they couldn't get him to come to Arapahoe County to do a controlled buy. They stopped answering my calls. I heard from another mom that they wouldn't be able to convict because my son had a polysubstance toxicology. In addition to fentanyl, my son had a small amount of alcohol. And when I say small, I mean small, below the legal limit. And I wasn't going to give up that easy. This was my son's life, and my son's life has value. All of our children's lives have value. And I wasn't going to stop fighting for my son. He fought for years an admirable fight of his own against addiction, and it was all that I had left. It was all that I could do for my son now. I contacted the district attorney's office, who in essence confirmed this was true. How could this be? I was told they were having to hire toxicology experts to basically overrule coroners. All of this felt like a tragedy to me. How could it be that there were agencies impeding the fight against this health crisis? Part of the problem, not part of the solution. But that wasn't stopping me either. I hired my own toxicology expert, and for $300, he evaluated my son's autopsy report and his toxicology report, and presented me with a report that included an entire page of the tests that the coroner should have completed but did not. And you remember my son wasn't found for 2 days. Our bodies produce alcohol post-mortem. So I reached out to the coroner with this list of testing, and she did in fact request one additional test. And the results of that were that my son's pre-mortem alcohol level was now 0.0001%. Trace amounts. And she said to me, I will not change his death certificate until that number is 0. We all know that fentanyl killed my son. Her ridiculous stance is impeding the prosecution of drug dealers. Our children, our loved ones are getting other illicit drugs laced with fentanyl, which means, of course, they will have a polysubstance toxicology report. And coroners are standing in the way of holding drug dealers accountable. Drug dealers must be held accountable. Drug dealers who are knowingly peddling poison. The distribution resulting in death law must be changed. The law must be written to be prosecuted. Fentanyl poisonings must be treated as crime scenes, the same as any other homicide investigation. Our children's lives have value, and our children are being murdered. And unfortunately, that fight is left to us. To bereaved mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, uncles, sisters, brothers, aunts. Look at all of these broken people here today still standing. Broken, shattered hearts saying no more. Together our voices are loud, and together we must continue to fight to say in our unified voices, our children matter.